And welcome to Cardinals Nest 2.0. This is our first ever 2.0 Cardinals Nest. I'm Dean Beckman, the faculty athletics representative for St. Mary's University. My co-host is Donnie Netto, the sports information director for the Cardinals. And Donnie, 2.0 is a brainchild of yours. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we do a Cardinals Nest every week, and we bring on Cardinal athletes that are currently at St. Mary's and some of the coaching staff. And the thought process was, let's get together with some of our Cardinal student athlete alums, kind of see what they're doing now, maybe bring back some memories of years past when they played here. And we couldn't think of a better first guest than Tom Wistrcill, former men's basketball player here at St. Mary's. And Tom, welcome to Cardinal Nest 2.0, and thanks for being our first guest.
Great to be here, Donnie and Dean. Good to see you guys, and excited to talk about St. Mary's and all the great times I had back then and what's happened since. So it's great to be with you guys.
Well, I was really excited, Tom, when I was learning a little bit more about you and saw that you graduated in 1992 from the Media Communication Department, because that's basically where I teach right now. We're called a little bit different right now, but basically the same department. Tell us a little bit more about your time at St. Mary's, both academically and, of course, on the basketball court.
Sure. Well, I was very fortunate to come to St. Mary's. I went to high school in La Crosse, Central High grad of '88, and was looking at multiple different schools to play basketball. And actually, the person that made the biggest influence on my decision to come to St. Mary's was Mark Service. If you remember the Service brothers from down there, and Ed was the baseball coach while I was at St. Mary's. His brother Mark, a great guy and a mentor of mine, helped out around Central High along with his baseball scouting duties. And he was the one that had said, you really need to take a look at St. Mary's. And, I can tell you from my first minutes on campus, and now having worked in college athletics for almost 30 years now, 27 years, the great thing about St. Mary's, my first few minutes on campus with my mom, everybody I passed by said hi. It was the only campus I went to that everybody's like, hi, how you doing? And it wasn't like a, hey, what's up? Just kind of a nod of the head. It was like, they were like generally interested in why I was there on campus. And that type of feel really helped me feel good about my decision, and then coming to St. Mary's to join the basketball team. I knew I wanted to be a broadcasting major at the time, and was working a little bit at part-time at one of the TV stations in La Crosse. And so, I played basketball. I could major in communications and really thought that was the path that I was going to take. And it was a perfect fit. We had a great time academically there. Lots of memorable professors and experiences that I was able to have that's helped me every day of my career. And then certainly being part of a basketball program and the friends I met there, the games we played, the places we traveled to, playing in a great conference like the MIAC, and that was even kind of the icing on top of it to make it a great experience. And many of my best friends in the world I still keep in touch with. Most of Chicago kids that were teammates of mine, and a couple of them were in my wedding. Guys that St. Mary's means the world to them as well. And so couldn't be more positive about my experience there as a student and an athlete.
Tom, talk a little bit about where you went from after you graduated from St. Mary's. I know right now you're the commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, which is awesome in itself. But you took some steps to get there, and talk a little bit about your path to where you're at now as the commissioner.
Sure. So after graduating, at the time I was dating one of the soccer student athletes, and now my wife Kelly Kluge. Her family lived up in the Twin Cities. So I moved up to the Twin Cities, found a job selling radio advertising. As you guys know, if you want to get a job in sports or broadcasting, and the good jobs, they don't come to 22-year-olds. So you got to figure out a way to get your foot in the door. If you can talk to people, you can get a job in sales. And so I ended up getting a job at a radio station up there in the Twin Cities. So radio advertising, I switched over to newspaper advertising. And then through a friend of a friend, met someone who worked at the University of Minnesota in the athletic department. Asked him if I could come volunteer my time. And that's when I fell in love with intercollegiate athletics administration and realized that that was going to be my path to continue to work in sports and use the skills that, that were really developed there as a student at St. Mary's. And so from there, I started as an intern then at the University of Minnesota. Ironically, Dean's former school, Winona State, was part of the Northern Sun Conference. They were looking for their first ever commissioner. So this would have been 94, I was 24 years old. And so I applied and was selected as the commissioner of the 17 Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference, the first ever commissioner that they've had. And I'm sure the youngest commissioner in NCAA history. I was 24, as you can imagine, didn't have a clue what I was doing. But it was a great start into it. And so I spent 3 years there as the commissioner. Then I spent 4 years out in Colorado as the commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Around that time, I had made the decision I wanted to be a Division I athletics director. It was right around the year 2000, and looked for a number of jobs, and really couldn't find one in Division I. I was either overqualified because of 7 years as a commissioner, or I was underqualified because I'd spent all of those in Division II. So, I took a real chance on a job and we moved to St. Louis, Missouri. I became the GM of a pro women's volleyball team. How about that, Donnie?
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I knew it wasn't going to last, but it was a lot of fun for about a year and a half. And from there, got in touch with a company called Learfield that handles multimedia rights for Division I universities. Got hired then as the GM for Learfield at the University of Wisconsin in the athletic department there in Madison. So we were selling all the corporate sponsorships, running all the media rights and agreements, broadcast all the games for Wisconsin. And that was really my big break there in Division I. So spent 4 years at Wisconsin, then moved back to the University of Minnesota as the senior associate AD for Joe Maturi, who was the AD for the Gophers then. And then it was 2009 that I accepted the athletic director's job at the University of Akron. And so I was the AD for the Akron Zips for 6 years, and then had a brief stint for a couple of years back at Learfield headquarters in Dallas, and then came here to the Big Sky Conference about 2 years ago. So, so it's interesting. I was a Division III student athlete. I've been a Division II commissioner, a Division I AD, and now a Division I commissioner. So I've seen all sides of college athletics.
I think, Tom, that one of the things that's really intriguing about your story is that, and Dean, you can probably attest as a professor, is that, like you said right off the bat, is you don't get your dream job right out of college. You have to put in the time, and you have to, sometimes you're going to take jobs that maybe not the fit that you want, but to make the step to that next level, you've got to put in the time. And I think that's one of the things that some of the students in not only at St. Mary's, but in all schools have to understand is, coming out of college as a 22, 23-year-old, you're not going to have that Big Sky commissioner job. You got to put in the time and the effort to get to that place.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's all about getting your foot in the door. You got to chase your dreams, and it's great to have big dreams. And it's important who you connect yourself with. When I speak to classes, whether it's now doing on Zoom or in person in the past, I've always told everybody you kind of need two things. One is you need like a record of accomplishments. You need to be able to have things that you've done, whether it's increased revenue if you're in sales or won games if you were a coach. You have to have a measure of things that you can accomplish. And then secondly, you have to have people that can talk about you, about how good you are. It doesn't do any good if you have all these accomplishments that nobody can either verify them or brag about you. And it doesn't do any good if a bunch of people talk about how good you are, but you really have nothing to show for it. So you need to develop both of those, and they kind of work hand in hand. The networking piece of who do you know is very important, but that might help you get the foot in the door. But how you advance is based upon how good you are, how hard you're willing to work, and the sacrifices you're willing to make along the way.
Tom, let's talk about your current role as commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. I'm guessing that when you took the job, as you said, a couple of years ago, so not that long ago, they didn't ask how you might lead them during a global pandemic. So what has that been like, and what have you tried to do as commissioner of the conference to try to put people at ease and sort of lead them during this crisis situation?
Yeah, there's no book on this. There's no class. I'm sorry, Dean. You haven't put it on any of your curriculum or this. So it's been the most interesting time, I think, of all of our lives, much less our careers, right? And so we have an interesting group of schools because we're spread out over 8 states here out west. And my headquarters here in Salt Lake City, but we stretch all the way from Greeley, Colorado to Sacramento, California, from Flagstaff, Arizona, up into Idaho and Montana. So we're spread out. And so the virus hit all of these areas really differently. When everything hit, we were in, like most Division I conferences, we were in the middle of our basketball tournament. And we were in Boise, which is a great home for us. We got through 60% of our games and then had to shut down everything. But back then, it was such an unknown factor. We didn't know if we were going to be, we knew the basketball tournament wasn't going to happen and the NCAA tournament wasn't going to happen. But we didn't know what happened after that. And never in our wildest dreams back in March did we still think we'd be dealing with this here in September, that it would be affecting our campuses and our student athletes and our programs still to such a dramatic fashion. And so, we've all had to make really tough decisions. It doesn't matter whether you have Division III St. Mary's or Division I at a conference level, really difficult decisions based upon the health and safety of the student athletes and the coaches and everyone. We've certainly let the local medical communities help us with our decision making. We created a medical and health committee that we did not have before. We probably needed one. Every conference should have one. But we created one with a representative from each school that really helped kind of guide us on what do we need to prioritize here. We know this is not good in some areas. It's okay in others. Quite frankly, about half our schools could play football right now. But the other half can't even have practice, can't even have groups of 5 or 10 people together. So like I said, we're in such opposite places our schools are. So it was important for me as the commissioner to make sure that we were together in our decision making, whether it was our faculty reps, our ADs, or ultimately our presidents, to get them to think about what's best for the whole. And we spent a lot of time on that over the summer, because once we hit August and we made the decision not to have fall sports, then I needed to let the presidents worry about their campuses. How are they going to open campus? How many students are they going to allow in? Are they going to have online classes? Are they going to have in-person classes, hybrid? All of that's still going on. So now our focus has turned to, when can we start basketball? Are we going to be able to start basketball on time? I think we might have to postpone basketball a few weeks, or at least until Thanksgiving, to clear the campuses out. But for me, it's been a constant communication piece with the NCAA, with the medical committees, with all of our leadership, and making sure everybody's kind of getting the same message so we can land the plane in a good spot.
Tom, you talked earlier about you enjoyed your 4 years at St. Mary's. You love playing basketball. I want you to go back to that time, go back into the early 90s. Tell us a little bit about playing basketball at St. Mary's. What was it like back then compared to, for me, compared to what it's like now in 2020?
Yeah, it was interesting. When I came into the program as a freshman back in 1988, and George Drusius was our coach, but unfortunately he left right before the season started. So we ended up getting Dan Blank, who had some basketball coaching experience, but was also the women's soccer coach. And so it was really a transition time for that first year. Myself and only a couple of us as freshmen that played varsity. Most of the other guys were upperclassmen, and a couple of guys you guys remember. Jim Galkowski was a great shooter. He was a senior when I was a freshman, and Romel Collins was a great player out of Chicago that was a senior. So I had some good guys to play with there, but it was really a transition time, and we had a blast. We didn't win many games, unfortunately, but we sure had a lot of fun, and it was a really good group. The next few years, we had Tom Zukowski became our coach, and then Tom was the coach the rest of my career. And a little more stability there. Recruiting got a little better. We got some better players in. John Jimenez was a great player I played with out of Mankato. Anton Collins led the nation in field goal percentage. My sophomore year, he was a senior. Another great player out of Chicago. And we started to have a little more success. You know, the interesting thing was, you know, the teams that we played against then, you know, St. Thomas, 2 of the 4 years I was in school, they made it to the Final Four. And my senior year, Gustavus lost the national championship game. So the MIAC, you know, just like St. Thomas now has been a powerhouse there, the MIAC had really good basketball players. When I moved up to the Twin Cities and played in some of the top leagues up there after college, a lot of the best players in the league were MIAC guys I played against from those schools. And so it was great to see. It was a great conference to play in, and I had a blast. And I can still give my kids some crap. I know I still hold 1 school record, and probably 2, but I don't think you guys publicize it very much. So I'm still the all-time leader in his career assists, I believe, judging from what I saw. And luckily, you don't keep track of career turnovers, because I'm pretty sure I have that as well. In fact, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. We played up at Bethel my junior year and lost a heartbreaker. And they had a 6'10" kid that played in the NBA by the name of Dale Turnquist for a few years after. He had no business playing D3 ball. But anyway, so we after the game, we board the bus. We're driving through. We usually stop near Hastings on the way back to like a Burger King or a Hardee's or something like that. And it was the first time I saw the stat sheet, and I looked at it, and I had 13 assists and 10 turnovers. And I was still looking at the stat sheet, and the coach came over, and he's like, you know, Tom, if you just would have rebounded a couple more, you could have had a triple-double. And I was like, thanks a lot, Coach. I don't think that's the triple-double we're looking for. And he goes, well, you always know your passes are going to somebody. Maybe we just need to throw it to the red or white team a little more. All right, thanks a lot, Coach. So there's some of the good memories we had there.
Well, it's definitely up to Donnie to publicize some of that stuff.
That's right. Well, as soon as you said those 2 numbers, I'm like, boy, that's a double-double. Probably not the one you want, but that's a double-double.
Yeah, no.
Tom, have you kept track? Have you been following at all what the Cardinals are doing right now? They really are on a huge upswing, and you know, are definitely turning some heads, not only in the conference, but I think around the region.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you know, Brian, your AD, and I have become pretty good friends. We stay in touch, and I connected with Joe, the head coach, during the season, just to tell him, you know, congrats and keep it up. It's cool to see, you know, turning that program around, and he's done a great job. In fact, one of the best players, Eli Cade, his dad was at St. Mary's the same time I was, even though he didn't play basketball. But you know, good to see the players doing well. It's fun to see St. Mary's playing well. And I think what's cool is, you know, it's guys like me and other guys that I played with, whether they were older or younger, whether it's through Facebook or whatever, we'll comment on it. We'll tweet and text each other about, hey, check out what St. Mary's is doing. And to me, that's what's really fun about, you know, having a program like St. Mary's where people are still connected to it. But it's fun to watch the success and excited to see what hopefully this year can bring.
Well, Tom, I know the Big Sky Conference is definitely known for many sports, of course, but especially football. Do you ever brag to the ADs in the conference that your alma mater is still undefeated in football?
Yeah, I tried to get St. Mary's on the schedule. Montana and you know, they kind of dodged us a little bit, yeah, no, it's fun. And you know, I'm the son of a football coach. My dad coached football for over 30 years. So to have, and then I went to a school that didn't have football, but I've always been connected to it at all the stops I've had. And so while basketball was always my first love, football was the sport I probably spent the most around. But glad that St. Mary's continues to have a tremendous football program. And so when I was there, Zukowski, besides being the basketball coach, was also the intramural director. So I was like the sports coordinator my last 2 years there, ran all the intramural programs, and I got all the other athletes to come officiate. And there was some heated flag football games. You'd get some of the hockey guys and some of the seminarians, and you'd get some of the fraternity guys together, and it was pretty heated at times. I don't know what happens today, but those were some. We made like $4 an hour. It was never enough money.
Tom, just a couple more questions here. My last question is, I'm sure you get high school students who come to you for advice on playing collegiate athletics, and you have experience, as you said, as a Division III student athlete, and then of course administratively in Division II and Division I. So what advice do you give to a high school student who's considering playing college athletics?
So, there are lots of ways to get exposure, and I'm not a fan of the, pay this much money to this person, they're going to help you get college exposure. I'm not a fan of that. I think that the best thing you can do, number one, is you got to have a great high school career, because your high school coach is going to be able to help you, because the first thing the college coach is going to do is going to call the high school coach and going to say, hey, tell me about Donnie. Is he a good kid? Does he work hard? Does he make his teammates better? How's his grades? Now, notice none of those were about how good a player he was. So first of all, you got to have a good relationship with your high school coach. You got to have a good high school career. Your high school coach can help you. There are camps and clinics and all of those things, recruiting things in just about every sport all over the country. Get to as many of those exposure events as you can. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, go on the offensive. If you're interested in going to a school, if you're interested in being a student athlete at that school, reach out to the coach. The great thing about recruiting rules is it allows the students to reach out to the coaches. The coaches can't always reach out to the students based upon where they're at in their schooling or where they're at in the calendar year. But the students can always reach out to the coaches. And so I encourage the parents and students, if you think out about it, I think playing basketball at St. Mary's would be great. Well, then reach out to the coaches and say, I'm interested in learning more about the basketball program. You find out very quickly if there's mutual interest there, but coaches love it when student athletes show interest in them. That kind of crosses that first hurdle. Wow, they're already interested in us. That's better than me trying to talk them into getting interested. So that's the best advice I could give. I'm always of the adage of nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so, if you have high aspirations for being a college athlete, then go grab it by the reins and make it happen.
Tom, we usually close out our Zoom Cardinals Nest with a question I usually ask our student athletes based on a questionnaire that they will fill out at the preseason. Since you didn't get to fill out a questionnaire, I'll just ask you a simple one. Native of the area, what's the one thing you miss about this area? And then what's the one thing that you do not miss about this area?
So the thing that I miss most about that area, and my connection to there is pretty unique. I was born in Winona when my dad was playing football at Winona State, and then made my way back through his coach to Iowa, Ohio, and then back to that area to go to college. Went to high school in La Crosse, as I said. By far, the thing I miss the most are the people. The most genuine, hardworking, caring people I've ever come across are in that region between La Crosse and Winona. Just the best people to spend some time with, to have a cold beer with, and so no, I really miss the people. I don't miss those dreary January, February days. It's like up until Christmas, the snow is pretty, and then after Christmas, the snow really sucks. So January, February, that first couple weeks in March, I always knew it was going to snow at the hockey tournament, right? The state hockey tournament, that was like the turning point. Now that I'm back living in the mountains where the sun shines about 340 days a year, I don't miss those dreary days of the region there. But great place to live, great place to grow up, and like I said, proud to say I'm a Cardinal.
All right. Well, Tom Wistrcill, we really appreciate your time here, and best of luck as you lead the Big Sky Conference into the future.
Yep. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Love what you guys are doing there. And we got a big supporter here in Salt Lake, and they're all over the country. So keep doing what you're doing, guys.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for Cardinals Nest 2.0. Thanks for watching.